As far as 3ds Max is concerned, a camera is just another object similar to the beakers that we animated previously. So why is camera animation different than any other form of object animation? First, you're actually animating the viewer through the scene, and you need to exercise an extraordinary amount of care when you lead the viewer through your scenes. A good way to work with a camera in 3ds Max is not to make the camera do anything a real camera can't do. Let's say you're working on a feature film and a camera is going to be from the point of view of an actor running down a city street and turning into a doorway. The camera in that situation would not abruptly turn as soon as it got to the doorway. It would turn in a fluid motion and would more likely have some kind of leading motion, meaning that the camera starts turning before it actually gets to the doorway. This is a rule that most animation productions stick to with very few exceptions. You need to limit the panning and swinging of the camera on its axis. Remember that cameras in 3ds Max are single lens cameras. There is no peripheral vision. Because of that, if you overdo the swings and the pans of your camera, it can become a very distracting part of the animation and really take away from the overall quality of the final product. A good way to test it on yourself is cup your hands around your eyes. Rotate in your seat 180 degrees as quickly as you can. Again, if you watch how filmmakers treat their cameras, you will see very few pans and swings of the cameras. Not to say that they don't pan a camera or swing a camera on its axis. It's just done more slowly and controlled in order to add to the overall scene and not take away from it. Unless, of course, you're following a very fast-moving object. One of the best alternatives for you to generally use is to animate the camera along a path. Instead of animating the camera itself along the path, you want to think about what kind of editing you may want to do to the orientation of the camera. You may want to look left or right. If so, you'll need to be able to rotate the camera. You may want the camera to bounce up and down a little, to simulate a handheld camera for instance, or if it's traveling over rough ground. In that case, you would have separate motion animation. You want to learn to separate the animation for your cameras by learning a process called hierarchical linking. We will animate a dummy object. This is an object that will never render. It's simply used as a control object in the scene. We'll animate the dummy object with a path constraint so it moves along a path down the middle of the street. We'll then link the camera to the dummy object. We'll be creating a parent-child relationship by linking the child object to the parent object. So wherever the parent goes, the child will go with it. The advantage of this is that while the child is moving along with the parent, the child object can have its own animation. It could be bouncing up and down, it could be rotating. We've separated the controls for these two totally different animations. It gives us much more control and is much easier to edit. And if done properly, is much easier for team members to figure out what is going on with the animation in the scene.